So addiction for me started without me even knowing it, to be honest, because I grew up around a lot of violence and alcohol in the family home. And I grew up in a bit of a poor area. There's a lot of drink and drugs around all the time. It was like a sort of thing that people would do on a weekends and that, even when we were at school in the parks and things. But I wasn't really too much into it then. We'd have a little drink and that, but it was only sort of like youngsters messing around. We weren't going into pubs. There weren't no like drugs being taken because we were addicted. It was all sort of like a social thing. And so then coming up to the ages of work age, leaving school, it used to carry on the same thing, being a social weekend thing. And then, as years went on, it became more of a frequent social thing. So there'd be, instead of going out after work just on a Friday, you'd be going out on a Thursday as well. And then you'd be going at lunchtime sometimes to the pub for a few beers, then back to work. And I think at the time, you don't really worry too much about it because you just think you're being sociable, everyone else with you having a few beers as well. And then you're going back to work, so you don't really see it as much of a problem. But then, my mental health was quite stable then, and I was in a full-time job, and I wasn't really having too many issues that forced me towards addiction. But then I ended up getting an injury through work and ended up losing my home and my business. So I'd gone from working full-time to having my own home to just having sociable drinks to being homeless in the council office, not knowing what I'm going to do with no savings left because I'd spent that on my rent for the few months while I was out of hospital and injured. So then, I got put in a hostel, and I was back in the area where I grew up. So I bumped into a lot of people who I hadn't seen for a few years. And it was just one of them things where the social thing to do was drinking. And, while I was not working and I was homeless and I was just living in the hostel, there's a lot of other people in the hostel who just, in and out of homelessness as well and out of prison. And I just got involved in the wrong crowd pretty much. But I enjoyed the drinking. It wasn't a problem for me at this point, It was taking my mind off of things. It was escaping, because I'd always worked up until this point, and I'd always drunk, but not in an addictive way that I thought, So I found myself, kind of not knowing what to do in life, and I felt a bit hopeless. My mental health deteriorated quite rapidly. And I just felt alone, really. I felt on my own, apart from having a drink, and that was my newfound friend, as to speak.